You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Before we get started, just a friendly reminder that you can find all of my available properties on my website at marcguzman.com. You can also find an archive of all of our past podcast episodes. On today's episode, we'll be sampling the Gold IPA provided by our sponsor, East Brother Beer Company. Located on Canal Boulevard in Point Richmond, East Brother Beer mixes the classic styles of old with the precision and sensibility of the modern day to create the perfect beer experience. Check them out at eastbrotherbeer.com. For 127 years, the University of California Marching Band has been the pride of UC Berkeley. On Saturday afternoons in the fall, the Cal Band puts on some of its best shows before Cal home football games. The Cal Band has played all over the world and in some of the most iconic venues. Since 1995, the band has been directed by Robert Calonico, who himself graduated from Cal in 1976. A former member of the band himself, Robert announced earlier this year that he will be retiring this summer after a long, successful career. Well, Bob, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. We are now doing Facebook Live, too. And so, we're taking up this podcast to a whole new level. And I'm excited to have you here as a guest because, like what I was just briefly mentioning to you before we started recording, I'm starting to learn a lot more about various marching bands, and it's amazing what the performers actually do. And for most people, you just see the overall entire picture, right, but there's a lot more that goes into it when you start breaking down all the different components. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for coming. I do want to let everyone know about our beer sponsor, East Brother Beer. And in fact, let's go ahead and try the beer since you've never tried it before, right?
I haven't. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. So they're local out of Richmond. They're over on Canal Boulevard. And
it's very good.
Their beer's pretty good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, they stay pretty classic. Are you a big beer fan?
Yeah, I enjoy a beer, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite beers?
Pretty much any IPA for me.
Okay.
Lagunitas something is a good one.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of them out there.
It's funny that you said Lagunitas something because I was drinking that literally last night.
Well, basketball game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Okay, so you're getting ready to retire.
Yeah.
And I believe it's set for June of this year, right? Now, you're retiring from Cal Marching Band, correct?
Yeah, I'm director of bands there. So I do the marching band, I do the wind ensemble, and the second wind ensemble. So it's big program.
Yeah.
A lot of students involved.
Now, my understanding is that you have a lot of history with the University of Berkeley, and in fact, your parents went there, correct? Yeah. So I think it was a natural progression for you just to go to Berkeley since both of your parents went there.
Well, when my siblings and I were growing up, this was a time when our parents would say to us, well, you can apply anywhere you want, but you're going to Cal's. But now, I mean, that's you can't say that now. It's so competitive, to get in that place now. So, but back in the day, so 4 out of 5 siblings went there. My parents met there. My mom was working on an undergrad degree in 1949, finishing it up. My dad was in grad school. They met at a party, and there you go. And it's like you say, the rest is history. My students like to say, well, the first 3 letters of your name say it all. So CAL, right? So there it is.
Now, what was your experience going to that school like?
Well, it was great. My brother and sister had both, started school there. My brother's a year ahead of me. He was in the band. So, as kids, we would go to Cal football games on occasion. So, I saw the band and thought, oh, that might be cool someday. And then my brother winds up in the band, and I was a senior in high school and thought, I think I'll just follow him up there and see how it goes. And there it goes. So I was there from 72 to 76 and, graduated did some public school teaching and wound up back at Cal.
What made you end up going back to Cal?
I had completed a master's degree in 1987, and I thought I'll test the waters and see if I can get a college job. So I applied all over the place, didn't get anything, and then I applied for UC Jazz Ensemble's director and was lucky enough to get it in 1990. So I had left Terra Linda High School, where I taught for the last 12 years, and then came over to Cal in 1990.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, when you were at Cal, you were also in the band.
Yeah.
What was your experience at the time being in the band compared to now that you've been the director for so many years?
There's quite a bit of similarity. We're steeped in tradition, you know, and the uniform is basically the same. The marching style is the same. You know, the music obviously has changed quite a bit, but there's a lot of similarities. My second year in band, Title IX had passed, and women were admitted into the band. My mom actually never got over that. When she was there in the 40s, she knocked on the door and, I'd like to be in the band. They said, no women. And so she just stormed off. And so, you know, so that kind of upset her at the time. But many years later, when I was the director, I said, Mom, you got to get over this. Why don't you just conduct the band and we'll call it a deal? And so she got a chance to conduct the band. Everything was cool. So, it's surprisingly, there's a lot of similarity in the years. I hope we've grown with the times, you know, and made our group more inclusive. You know, when I took over in 1995, there were some cultural things that I thought needed to be changed, and that took some time to kind of fix and make it a healthier, more welcoming environment for all of our students. So I think that is one of the things I'm really proud of, that the band has changed.
Now, the band is student-run, correct?
Yeah.
Has that always been student-run?
Yeah, since the 50s. So this is two predecessors ago. Jim Berdall, I don't know that I ever talked to him about it directly, but I think he saw somewhere that, you know, Berkeley was never going to get him a full professional staff. So he thought, why not empower the students who are here? And I think it's great. We have 5 student officers who chart the course of the band, and I'm on that committee with them. And then they each have committees. And so there's a drum major that does the field charting that you've seen your son participate in.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. Then there's musical arrangements and music rehearsals and public relations and fundraising and all kinds of different things that happen during, you know, in the day-to-day operation of the band. So the students are very much involved.
So I imagine growing up, you were always into music.
Yeah. I started taking piano when I was about 8 years old. So I'm a functional piano player, but I remember going to a symphony concert, and I was sitting next to my mom, and I go, what instrument is that? And she said, the clarinet. And at that time, I knew a little bit about her history as a high school clarinet player, but, you know, so for whatever reason, I took up the instrument she had played in high school and then stopped playing after high school. So I was 12 when I started playing the clarinet, and then took up saxophone, flute, and all that stuff after that.
What's been your favorite instrument to play?
The one I fell in love with first was clarinet, so I would say that's my main instrument. But I love playing the saxophone and the flute and all that. So.
Yeah. I know music and band plays such an important role into like a child's development. Like, it'd be nice to see it a lot more widespread in more schools, and especially right now. I mean, you have a lot of schools that are cutting back on budgets, so it's nice to see. You know, I mean, like where my stepson goes, they have a really good band program.
Well, and you're seeing it as a parent, and I think I wish more people understood what a good thing it was, because there's a lot of students involved in music, and it's something they can do their whole life. You know, if you do athletics, at some point, you know, your body's going to tell you, I got to stop doing this. But with music, you can do it your whole life.
Yeah, and talking about athletics, when we had the podcast with the Blue Devil CEO, he was breaking down as far as he calls everyone musical athletes, because the amount of physical activity you do during performances and shows, it's extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they even have a whole fitness routine that they have to go through. So is your marching band, do they have to do very similar type of physical routines?
We don't have an actual, probably don't do as intense a physical thing as the Blue Devils do, because they're in competition and they're, that's serious business. That DCI, when they're playing for keeps, this is a college marching band, and I guess there's a little friendly competition back and forth. You want to do better than the other school, but it's not, a competition like DCI is. But our students, when I think about pregame, they're marching 5 minutes straight at about 160 beats per minute. I mean, that's moving, and you're playing and marching at the same time. So it's physically demanding. And if you're a brass player, it's probably a little harder on them.
I would assume there has to be some special breathing techniques that you have to learn.
Well, you just tanking up and tank up, go as long as you can, tank up again, and hopefully your buddies on either side of you are not breathing at the same time. So but yeah, it can be very taxing.
Yeah. Now you joined the band program in 1990. And you took over in 1995?
I did UC Jazz for 5 years. I was the director of that program for 5 years, and then switched over to band in 1995.
Okay, so 28 years now.
Yeah.
Why retire?
I've taught for 40 years, and I thought, I don't know, in my mind, that was always a target for me. If I was lucky enough to survive in the business of music education for 40 years, that might be a good time to try other things. So I will still stay involved in music, and I have a few things that I'm trying to line up for after I leave the university, but it's just time. I felt like it's time.
Yeah. Now you've played in the past with Wayne Newton, James Brown, Ray Charles. So I want to ask you, what's that experience like to play with those people?
Incredible kicks. Just so fun with James Brown. To sit next to Maceo Parker, that guy plays like a locomotive, and Henry Mancini. I remember sitting next to Ray Pizzi, was his solo tenor saxophone player, and just hanging out with those people. You're seeing the star, but then you also get to play with the road musicians who are traveling with these people. Natalie Cole was another memorable one where my folks had played Nat King Cole records in the house, my whole life, and then Natalie Cole comes around in the 70s, so it might have been a little celebrity crush that, later I wound up playing her show, and that was kind of a cool moment. But yeah, it's incredible.
Where did you play that show?
Natalie Cole, Circle Star,
okay.
The old Circle Star down in San Carlos. But also, it's just that all the musicians in town that I've had the opportunity and the joy of playing with all these years. I mean, and then you put the stars in the picture. I mean, it's just the best. The best. It's so fun.
Yeah. Now, do they come and play with the band?
No, not the big stars. But some of my colleagues have had, like Tower Power has performed with, various college marching bands. They've been Canadian Brass has done some things. Certain solo artists have done that. I think Arturo Sandoval has done quite a bit with marching bands where he's the featured soloist. And so, yeah, a lot of guys have done that. We don't. At Cal, we haven't.
Okay. What's the competition like for students to get onto the actual band?
Well, the hardest thing is getting in the university because we can't really recruit. We're going to get the students once they're admitted to the university. Then we send out a mass email to all the students who played music in high school, and then, for some, they choose to continue to play. Others are just burnt out after their high school experience, and they want to do other things. So we have 240 students in the band. We usually have a freshman class in the neighborhood of 100, and we make some cuts if we need to based on instrumentation or just ability levels. And then we go from there. So we can't really recruit. The hardest thing for UC Berkeley students is getting in the school. And then, we take what we get. And
so what's the program like for a student at Berkeley?
The band program?
The band program, yeah.
Well, okay, so the marching band is extracurricular. So it's a labor of love. These students are devoting 8 to 20 hours a week during the fall, and it starts in...
And completely separate from school and everything
completely
else.
Separate, yeah. It starts in mid-August, and it goes until, late November. And if there's a bowl game, then it's all the way through the month of December for them. And they're getting no academic credit or remuneration for their hours and time and dedication. So it's a lot. And if the students want to do concert band, that's a 2-unit class through the music department, so they can, participate in those activities too. So they can be as busy as they want to be, but for the students who are doing the really tough academic majors, I'm just grateful that they make time for whether it's marching band, wind ensemble, or whatever,
So how often does the band get together every week to practice?
Well, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the time frame of 4 to 6 in the afternoon. We have a Monday night music rehearsal. If there's a home game, we also have a Friday rehearsal, and then all day Saturday. And then these students finally get a chance to, catch their breath on Sunday and get caught up with school. And here we go again. We start all over the next week again. So it's a lot of time.
Now, what's the culture like over there? It's with the band itself. I would imagine it has to be a very tight culture.
Yeah, it's that community within a very, very large community. So the student body there is 32,000 students. So I think a lot of people can feel lost in that environment when they first get there. So the marching band is 240 students, and it's just the strangest thing. In all those years there, I can walk across campus, and there's never been once I haven't bumped into one of them. So it's like, what are the odds, right? There are 240 out of 32,000, and hey, what's going on? And it makes this very large community seem really small. So it's one of the things I talk to high school students about a lot. Find your community, whatever it is, whether it's going to be a marching band, a fraternity, a sorority, whatever it is, a club, something that will help you feel like it's a little bit more like home, because you can just get lost in all of that, and you just feel like this nameless, faceless number that's walking around and got no association with anything. So I think that most of all is what it is. It's a community, and those friendships that are forged and the time spent.
That's a lifetime. Yeah. The
guys I marched with, we're still friends. 40 years later. Good friends. So,
yeah. And I bet you had a great experience over there during your time in marching band.
Mm-hmm.
What was your most memorable?
I think for our time, well, there's two. You'd mentioned it in the notes. This was 1975 when USC comes in ranked 3rd, and we beat them. And I was lucky enough to be student director that year. So, student directors take the responsibility of winning, because it's our job to, get the crowd pumped up. So I'll take a partial credit. But I think the same is true today. A lot of the guys who were on the team were friends of mine in college, and so I'm a frustrated athlete. I couldn't possibly have played college football, but so you're in the band and you're supporting them in the way that you can. And so we were lucky enough to win. And then the other thing was the 76 bicentennial tour. We spent 6 weeks on the road, traveling around the country, celebrating the nation's bicentennial. So that was pretty cool.
And were you playing in stadiums?
Yeah, stadiums.
What's that like to walk into a stadium and just see thousands of people around?
Well, I don't know if it was thousands. We had some big auditoriums we would play in, and some outdoor things. So it's a mix of. As a matter of fact, one time I think in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, it was like a pasture, and so you had to watch all the the things the cows left and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah, it was interesting, but it was just a great experience.
Yeah.
A great experience.
Well, recently, Super Bowl 50
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys got to play with Coldplay.
Yes, we did.
How was that?
If somebody had told me the things we've done, I don't know. That's got to be one of the top memories for me. So Coldplay those guys were great, and the very first rehearsal were at 49er Stadium down there in Santa Clara, and for all of the rehearsals the week prior, all the stars were there. So one student comes up to me and goes, "Our own private rock concert. Like, we get to see Beyonce and her band and her backup singers, and you see Bruno Mars, and you see the Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles. Gustavo Dudamel is conducting." Like, what? We're on the field with all these people and Coldplay, and so it was great. Everything had to be pre-recorded, so the drummer of Coldplay did our sound check, did our recording session with us, and he couldn't have been nicer to my students. At the very end, I said to him, "Would you take a minute to go talk to the drums, or maybe even sit in and play something?" He goes, "I'm not really a drummer." And I go, "Come on, man, you're a big star. Come on over." And they just had a ball with him, and he couldn't have been more engaging and kind. And it was great.
That's
whole
awesome.
Experience. Yeah. So when you see people that big, and they're just regular folks, that's a really special thing. So.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. I mean, we put celebrities on such a high pedestal.
Of course.
And then it's always shocking to find out that they're just normal people like us.
Yeah. I mean, another student who was on the other side of the field told me Beyonce gave him a high five on the way off the field. And I mean, and they were like 6 feet off the ground for a month or two after that. It's just an incredible thing. And I guess the greatest thing about that, we had a non-disclosure agreement with the NFL. Like, you can't tell anybody that you're in it. I mean, we found out about this in December. So now there's a month and a half, and I know my students like to blab and, with social media and all that stuff. And so the guy from the NFL came to speak with us and said, "If you talk and it gets out, we pull you from the show." And we've done it before, so if it leaks, you're out. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness. And so for 6 weeks, nobody said a word. So
that must have been so hard for everyone.
Really, really hard. The hardest thing of all. Like I told my family at Christmas, but I said, don't you dare say anything, because if it leaks, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think it's probably everybody in the band told their folks. But.
Now, what about the outfits? Because the outfits were a completely different color scheme than
so
the normal
our
traditional
students
outfits.
wore our uniform pants and shoes, and then they called it the Starburst jacket. So it looked like Starburst. So it
was yellow and pink.
Yeah, yellow, pink, and I think there was some orange in there. Yeah, it was pretty ugly, but It's big show, so okay, we'll wear whatever you want us to wear. So we got a souvenir jacket. So there's one hanging in the one of the display cases at school.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. What was the practicing? Because you were notified in December, you said.
Yeah, and then there was a buddy of mine down at Brian Ransom at San Diego State does some work with the NFL. So he had put the field charting together, and then it was sent to us, and then our drum major and the stunt committee, they looked it over and they kind of readapted it for the computer program that we use. And so it all worked out. It was a lot of work for some of our students, a lot of extra work. But so I think it was the week leading up where we had to be there every day. And the call was like all day. So that, so we're on winter break, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how are the professors going to let these students out of school? And I can't tell them why. So some professors would write emails to me and they go, "Is this the rumor I'm hearing about?" I go, "Yeah, and we're not going to say anything." And professors were great about it, and they let the students out for that whole week, basically. So we're down at the stadium from whatever 9 or 10 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night. We had one rehearsal at Memorial Stadium in Berkeley, and it was raining, and so NFL bought ponchos for everybody, and it's just like a mess. But
I can
it
just
all worked
imagine.
out.
I can just imagine the rumors with you said 240 students asking for some kind of leave.
Yes, and you can just imagine how this whole thing could have blown up, and we were lucky enough to avoid a disaster. So yeah.
That's a very cool experience, though, especially for the students.
Really, really a cool one. And actually, when I got the call from the NFL, we were preparing for a bowl game, and students are in finals, so I pick up the phone. "This is the NFL. We'd like you to send some videos." And I'm thinking it's a joke. Somebody in the Pac-12 is jerking my chain, something. "Who's this? The guy at UW or University of Oregon? Who's yanking him?" No, it's the NFL. And I went, "Oh gosh." So anyway, we submitted videos. I think they were considering some other schools in California to do it, and we were lucky enough to be picked. So yeah, the whole experience was. And it was great.
That's awesome. Now, what are some of the traditions that the band has?
Let's see. One of the reverent ones is Silent Walk. This is where the new students after their first home game, we will give them that night off, and then on Sunday we take them through the campus, 5 or 6 different locations. There's various speakers who talk to the students, and on this walk, none of them can talk. Only the speakers talk, and at the very end, they're formally initiated into the band. And that started in the 50s, I think, and it's still one of the really, really special
like traditions.
Traditions that we have that has stood the test of time. So there's that. There's the silly things they do on game days. They have to rub the bear's nose. There's this, right outside our facility, there's little cement. There's all kinds of bears around the campus, so they do their, fun activities where they look for all the bears on campus. But this one is right outside our building, and they rub the bear's nose. And we have these little...
Is that rub it for good luck?
Yeah, for good luck. And it usually doesn't help much. But whatever. I think they got a great coach there now. And I think the one thing I always wanted was a Rose Bowl. Never got one, but I think that coach might get them there. So, we'll always be hopeful Cal fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, tuba players.
Yeah.
So, how many tuba players do you have?
Well, this year we had 16.
And they're dancing tuba players.
Well, you call it dancing, they call it strutting.
Okay.
So I don't know where it started because it was there when I got there in the 70s, and I'm not really sure who they saw doing it or if it was a thing that Cal started all by itself. But the story about the Cal Band, we stole pretty much everything from Ohio State. Because Pappy Waldorf, when he was the coach of one of those Rose Bowl games, he had his coaches videotape the Ohio State Band, and he gave it to Charles Cushing. And he said, "Why don't you try to be more like them?" Because I guess the Cal Band wasn't very good, and Pappy Waldorf thought, I want to see our band a little better since I go to all these Rose Bowls. So anyway, so Charles Cushing was fed up. He quit. So Jim Berdall took over, and then they modeled the uniform, the marching style, everything. And then you fast forward to 2012 or 13 when the full Ohio State Band came out here, and that was my Rose Bowl, where they came to our stadium, and we had the best time with those guys. And we had told them the whole story about us copying their style and the uniform, and the director at the time said,
even copied the uniform.
Everything. And the director said, we've always heard about this West Coast band that stole all of our stuff. We never knew who it was. Now we know. And it was just a great weekend with them. So anyway, that was my Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about the band being student run. I mean, what does that specifically mean? Because you're the director.
Mm-hmm.
What's your role as a director, and what are the students' role if it's student run?
Okay, so when I think about my role, I'm the institutional memory, I guess, the person who's been through it all these years. And so you have to guide them through the year. And I guess maybe I'm the one with the vision over time. So, like I had goals that I had set for myself. I wanted to do an international tour, and we were lucky enough to do that. Those kinds of things. They are focused on the day-to-day and perhaps season by season, where their individual areas of concentration, whether it's a student director or a drum major, they're focused on what they're going to do that year. And then, so I'm the one that reminds them about deadlines and what's coming up. And then maybe I'm the one who thinks ahead of time, 3 to 5 to 10 years ahead, and make plans for where we're going to go. The difficult thing about it is I don't know that we progress as much as we should. We get through a year and these students finish and they are so good at what they do, and then they're done, and then we have to start all over again. And so there's a learning curve for the new students who take over. And so sometimes I feel like we tend to do the circular thing, like we go through it and then we start all over again, and we don't necessarily go forward as much as I'd like to see us. But the most important thing,
with people graduating and new people coming in,
but they're empowered, and they're going to be the leaders in their respective fields. So I think it's a really good thing. A lot of my colleagues ask, "How do you do that?" And so it's just worked. I knew what I was getting into when I got there because I was lucky enough to be a student officer during my time. So it's worked, and it I think will continue to work for whoever takes my place.
Do you see a lot of the students staying in touch with other students and even you as a director,
Sure.
like after they graduate and after they move on?
Quite a bit, yeah, and of course social media has helped that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you see a lot of them still staying in the
still
music
come
field?
around now. Well, I don't know how many are actually in music. There are some certainly, but now I see them and they got young kids and they're in their 40s or some approaching 50 now.
Yeah.
So we're there we are.
So when there's performances, who makes the decisions on what to or where to perform and what to get involved in?
Where to perform? What do you
like if there's different opportunities that pop up as far as, okay, well, we can perform here, we can perform at this game, we can perform over here. Is it like a collective decision that everyone makes?
Everything is a collective decision. But the games, the shows that we perform, the students will pick the music. They submit cut tapes, we call them, at this time of year. So they're putting together ideas for shows in the fall. So the games are pretty well set up. If you're talking about like outside community things like this wedding or this parade or this, the Giants want us or the A's want us, and those things are all collective decisions made by the officers and myself.
And you did the Giants parade too, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
3 of them, yeah. And I maybe shouldn't say this. I'm a Dodger fan and a diehard Dodger fan.
Sam, we need 2 days in a row. We have 2 Dodger fans.
Those are my boys. But even for a Dodger fan, that very first one when we made the left turn onto Market Street, and it was like, are you kidding me? There were people hanging out of office buildings, and it was really fun. And we did like an impromptu concert. Where we had to get there so early before the parade. And so Tom Gardner was the student director, and he goes, what are we going to do? I go, well, I'm going to face them your way. You play for those people over there, and then when you're done, flip them the other way, and we'll play for these people over here. So we did a concert for all the parade attendees. It was the best. It was just great, even for a Dodger fan.
How many people were at that parade?
Oh, my gosh. They said the first one there were 1 million. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know how many, but that couldn't couldn't have been that many. 100,000 maybe, a couple 100,000. Yeah, a lot.
Feel like
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And City Hall was just packed. I've never seen that many people in one place. And then I was a really good brother because my brother's a diehard Giants fan. So the second one, I said, why don't you just be me? You put on the uniform, we look pretty much the same. He kept his hair, I didn't. But if he was dressed up in the uniform, we look very much the same. So he said, well, I don't want to be you. But he said, can you sneak me in? And so I got him a uniform, and he was just like a kid in a candy shop. So he spent the whole pre-parade time hanging out with Orlando Cepeda and Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. So all the old guys were one of the last cars in the parade, and he was just beside himself.
Ecstatic.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting in a car with legends there.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
So I bet there was a whole bunch of friendly rivalry between you and your brother.
Oh my gosh, yes. And as a matter of fact, that's how it all started. Nothing made him madder than losing to the Dodgers. So I thought, that works for me. I'll be a Dodger fan. I'm his younger brother. It's a pain in the neck, So it's lasted all these years. Yeah.
So what's a rival band to?
Oh, probably the biggest one is SC. Just because, gosh, their football team is always so good every year, and they have a little swagger to them. And I have to say, my adrenaline and heart rate increases a little when they are around, maybe more than the other ones. So that might be the biggest in the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's an average? So for game day, band's getting ready. Take us through an experience on game day. How does the band prep for it? I assume it's different songs every time. Is it the same?
Yeah, we do a different show every week. So, all right. So let's say it's a 1 o'clock kickoff, something like that. So the band congregates like 6 in the morning or something, like 5:30, because we have to be. Okay, now get this. We have to get off the field 4 hours before kickoff because they have to water the artificial grass.
Wow, really?
See, your eyebrows are just like mine. Well, you have to do what? So anyway, that's our reality. So anyway, we're there very early in the morning. We can't play until 8 o'clock, otherwise the neighbors are gonna, have a fit because 240 musicians that can be a little loud first thing in the morning. So so there we are in the dark. Sometimes the lights on the stadium don't come on. So anyway. So it starts very early. Little donut, little coffee or milk or juice for the students, and then we rehearse for an hour and a half. Then they have a period of time where they get to eat and just relax for a while, and then 90 minutes before kickoff, we do a big concert in right outside Sproul Hall, and then we do the march up to the stadium. A lot of our fans will follow us up, and that's it. Then the game starts, and there we go. So it's a long day, probably 12, 13-hour day for the students on a game day.
Wow.
With that early wake up, So, yeah.
Wow. I would imagine there's a lot of student fans, though, that follow the band.
They're not probably – they are very supportive of the band at the game. I don't know how many of them are actually at our concerts, because it's way before the game, and they're all tailgating and having their fun, at their fraternities or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But, yeah, they're at the game, and we sit right next to the students. So, yeah. There's a really good relationship, I think.
How influential is the band with the actual city of Berkeley?
Or
vice versa?
It was an interesting question when I saw that. So they're not really involved with us directly. The city of Berkeley and obviously the university have things they do together. But the city of Berkeley, when we went to China and Japan, we had looked into this whole sister city relationship and found out that Berkeley's sister city in Japan is Sakai, and that's one of the places where the band traveled in 1970, or very close to their Osaka, and so that that relationship with the sister city in Sakai got us the formal invitation so that we could travel to Japan. So in that sense, they were very helpful. And now we have a relationship with their mayor, Takayama, who has been, he conducted the band in Japan. He came back last year to conduct them again. And it's just, we have a great thing going. So, anytime he's here, we let out the red carpet and, have him conduct the band, and he loves it, So it's very cool.
So when someone's conducting the band, what is a conductor actually doing?
Okay, now don't tell anybody. Not much. There's a very cute video. If you're interested, Riccardo Muti, a very famous conductor, he conducts the Chicago Symphony. And if you just go to YouTube and Google Riccardo Muti's acceptance speech for an award that he got, it's very, very, just amazing how he makes his point. But the actual thing about beating time is no problem at all. I always tell, people that I give the baton to, what do I do? Just bring your hands down and they'll start. And then when they stop, and that's it. And they go, that's all there is to it? Yeah, shh, don't tell anyone. Yeah. So the act of actually starting and stopping them, it's no big deal. But to really get to the heart of the music and understand it and analyze it, that's a whole other thing. But for the people that we invite to conduct the band, it's always fun. Chancellors get to do it. I have to say our current chancellor, Carol Christ, is the best one I've ever seen. She's a musician herself, so she's great. But so anybody, we've had random fans do this, college students, it could be older alums, young children, all kinds of people have conducted the band. So.
Man, I want to do that now.
Anytime you want.
I'll hit you up. One day we'll have to get this on film too.
All right. Maybe if I know who takes my place, I can hook it up for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So looking back at your career and working with the band, what have been your fondest memories?
The students, all of them. It's the best part about the job. And that goes back to my days at Terra Linda, at Dominican College, where I taught for a while, and then all my time at UC. And there was a former professor of mine, Debbie Davidson, this tiny, 5-foot-tall woman. It's like the most dynamic, powerful 5-foot woman you've ever met in your life. And she was one of my professors in school. And we stayed in touch. And when I wound up back in Berkeley, she called me and she said, "Are you loving the students at Berkeley?" And I go, "Debbie, I just started. I feel like I can't even get a breath of air. There's so much stuff coming at me." She goes, "Just wait. You'll see what I'm talking about." And it didn't take very long for me to realize how special they are. But that's at every stop I've made. The students are the best part about the job. So by far.
Is it seeing them progress?
It's all of it. It's the relationships you build, the college age, when you think about that time period, 18 to 22, the growth in them. They come in oftentimes shy and reserved, and they leave confident and just posture. I mean, just everything about them has changed, right? They become their own people. And, so those are the rewards.
Yeah, that would be amazing to see that progression.
Yeah.
Now, what's been the biggest thing that you've learned yourself?
I have to go to my notes because that is a really great question. Okay, so patience, most of all, parenting helped with that too. My kids are grown and, living their lives there in LA, but patience is one. And then this thing about working in a bureaucracy like Berkeley, it's very, very challenging at times. And an administrator told me once, he said, it's a lot like geology. He goes, think about this, pressure and time. So if it's something you want, just keep applying pressure. And it's not going to happen overnight, but you just calmly go about your business. You know, nobody tells anybody to do anything at Berkeley, right? You have to just watch yourself. But I learned that pressure and time, and I didn't get everything I wanted, but I got most of what I wanted for our students. You know.
And you know, that's a big valuable lesson in life that you can take afterwards, you know, after college, because really, I mean, you really don't get everything you want in life, but if you persist and persist and persist, you'll be surprised how much you can get.
You are absolutely right. Yep. And so there you go. Those two things.
So what's first on your agenda when you retire?
My brother and I have talked about making wine together. So we've even talked about a label, E Fratelli, the brothers, you know, being Italians, you know.
Have you back on as a winemaker then?
There we go.
We've had quite a few winemakers
There's
here.
a guy I went to grad school with that we're thinking about making beer together. So, you know,
There
that's
you go,
just a
yeah.
recipe. So, you know, I think I might be able to figure that one out. But I want to still stay involved with music. I want to play a little more. I always thought about being on the other side of this. All my career has been the applied side, teaching, conducting, all that, playing, and I'd like to maybe teach teachers. So if that opportunity were to come up, that would be cool.
Interesting. Like consulting teachers
or
how to
or
teach
working with
bands?
student teachers, or teaching a music ed class at, you know, local CSU or something. I don't know. We'll see. You know, I'll keep those options open. Working on my golf game. You know,
That's always important to work on.
that's a lifelong battle, that one. So, you know, but there you go.
Yeah. What's your favorite golf course to play at?
Well, we learned the game at Tilden, so that's the one that always comes to mind first. But my brother and I celebrated our 50th birthdays, so he waited until I turned 50, so this is 13 years ago, but we played Pebble.
Oh, nice.
And that was like, we were like two little kids. I mean, like both our wives were, you two look like you're 8 years old again. He goes, shh. This is our moment. Just leave us alone. We're going to enjoy this.
Kind of the point.
Yeah. So we got there early. We hit balls. We walked the course. Played with a radiologist and his son. His son smoked us all. He like played 8 over.
Wow.
Like 15-year-old kid. He just tore up that place. And then of course the 19th hole was fantastic. So you know,
Yeah,
a couple
there's
of
some
scotches.
talented players coming up now.
Oh.
And a lot of them are under 20.
They got young backs, and they can, you know, make that full
Yeah,
turn.
rotation and speed.
God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
but
so before we wrap up, I want to ask you about Stanford Band. What are your thoughts?
we love those guys. We a lot of them are really good friends. You know, went to the same high schools, and some of them wound up at Stanford, some of them wind up at Cal, and then, you know, for the ones who are in the band, we see them a lot during big game week. We do a lot of activities together. You know, they do things differently than we do, but, you know, if we're all the same, how boring would that be? So we love them. And my daughter went there for grad school, so there's a really cute story at a big game when she was there, and she's on the sideline with me, and I'm in all the blue and gold, and it was at Cal, and she's got her red, you know, and this athletic department person who was new comes up and says, she's got to go. And I go, you got to go. This is my daughter. She stays. Bye. And she sat with me the whole game. And it was, I mean, that's what that rivalry is about. It's mutual respect for the schools. The band director down there, Russ, is a friend of mine. The previous guy, Giancarlo, was a friend of mine. The one before that is still a friend of mine, Art Barnes. So they're, you know, they're good people down there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks again
It's
for
been a
having
lot
me.
of fun talking to you about this.
Thanks.
I will hold you to it to
All
let
right.
me conduct the band.
You got
So
it.
I will reach out to you and we'll get that set up.
Okay, you got a deal. All right.
And congratulations
Thank
on your career, and good luck in retirement. Have fun, and
Thanks.
you know, good luck on working on that golf game.
Yeah, I'll need it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our guest, Bob Calonico, for joining us today. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman, And a big thank you to our sponsor, East Brother Beer, for providing us with today's beer tasting. For more information about today's beer and East Brother, go to their website at eastbrotherbeer.com. And for more information on what I do as a property manager, visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.